Welcome to the Careers by Jenn podcast, episode 294. On today's podcast, Jenn speaks with Justin Nguyen about how to optimize LinkedIn for your career success. Maybe you could try connecting with people you don't know, and then once they accept your invitation, try and sell them something they didn't ask you for. Why wouldn't that work?
Hey, I'm Jenn Swanson, and Careers by Jenn is where I help you to get the job, love your work, and advance your career. And I talk about wellness and success topics too. This podcast is actually ending production after episode 300. However, you can find me over at Careers by Jenn on YouTube, where I will be continuing to share career tips, advice, wellness, and success topics, and much, much more. It's been a 10-year run here on Careers by Jenn on the podcast, and until we are at episode 300, I invite you to continue listening. Go back and listen to the archives, and please enjoy this show. Thank you so much for being here. Need help with your LinkedIn? Well, today's guest is going to do just that. But first, thanks for listening, and thank you for all the lovely condolences and comments that I received after last week's episode. Most appreciated. You know, if you want to find out who listens to your podcast, talk about a relative dying, my goodness, you folks are beautiful. So thank you again. The Careers by Jenn podcast is recorded on the unceded and traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, including the Katzie, the Kwantlen, the Stolo, and the Coquitlam First Nations. I am here on the west coast of Canada in beautiful British Columbia. And today I'm bringing you a guest episode. This is a conversation that I had quite a long time ago, so back in the fall, I believe, with Justin Nguyen. He is the host of the Declassified College podcast, which is college advice that isn't boring. That's the tagline. He also hosts the website getchogrindup.com, and I'll have to spell that because I probably didn't say it right. GetChogrindup.com. And sounds much better when he says it. And that is aimed career advice that is aimed at Generation Z. I'm Canadian, Generation Z for you Americans. And you know what? Even if you aren't Generation Z or Z, I think you'll get value out of our conversation. So here it is with Justin and the Declassified College podcast, talking about how to optimize LinkedIn for your career success. Justin, why is it so imperative for people to be on LinkedIn these days?
So I think the number one reason that you need to be getting on LinkedIn right now is because it's the ultimate equalizer when it comes to being able to meet someone who may be completely out of your league when it comes to their in their career. So an example of that is myself. When I was a student, typically students only really interact with other students. And with my parents coming and being immigrants from Vietnam, I didn't really have a business network to kind of fall on. So the only way that I was able to meet executives from Fortune 500 companies, these recruiters, hiring managers, etc., was through LinkedIn. So that's why it's the ultimate equalizer, especially if you're coming from a background that you might not have all of the connections that you need when it comes to networking.
So it's something that can help you right out of the gate. And how is the best way to begin? Because I know I work with people in every age range, and people who are just starting out, and people who have been doing their career forever and are bored and want to move. And whenever, often when I've said, "Are you on LinkedIn?" I get this funny look. do I need to be? And so what is the best way to start making those connections when you're first starting out with LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think it's always funny whenever you mention LinkedIn to someone, right? They either have that one reaction of, do I need to be on there? Like, does it really help? Or I have a profile, but I haven't touched it in like 5 or 10 years. And it's funny how it's always one of the two answers. But I would say the first thing that you want to do with LinkedIn is before you even start reaching out to individuals to connect with, you want to have a really optimized profile. And what I mean by that is most people view their LinkedIn profile as a resume. And I think that's completely wrong. And the reason for that is because most of the time when people land on your LinkedIn page, it's typically because you've put your LinkedIn link on your resume. So if your LinkedIn page is another resume, then you're basically forcing the recruiter, hiring manager, whoever it is, to read your resume twice. And no one wants to read the same thing twice. So you have to find a different way to position your page so that it's still resume oriented, that's able to showcase your skills and your ability for whatever job that you're looking for. But you want it to become a landing page so that whenever a recruiter, hiring manager, again, whoever that may be, falls on that page, they know exactly what position you're looking for, what tangible skills that you have for that position, and why you're the right person for that job. And I think that's what people fail to do, especially on LinkedIn, because if you look at most people's pages, what they'll have is a standard photo, which is fine. And they don't have a background image, a banner image. And if you don't have that banner image, definitely get one, because you can use that as great real estate to tell what industry that you're trying to get into and showcase your personal brand. But also, the most important part for me are the about section and then your headline. Most people, for their headline, they will just put their current job title, which isn't really telling me where you want to go in the future. And then most students will just say student at the University of Central Florida, or student at Cornell, or student at Harvard, whatever it is. And again, that doesn't tell me where you want to go in the future. So headline, again, important. And then the last thing is your about section. And this is where most people just regurgitate their resume there. They'll put their list of accomplishments and their dates that they've worked places or what they've done. But if you think about it, if you just scroll a little bit more down on your LinkedIn page, you have all of that there. You want to use that about section to differentiate yourself from not only the other competitors that are looking to get that job, but also from your resume, so that the recruiter is falling in love with you as they're reading that about section. Not like, oh my God, Justin is just saying the same things over and over again throughout his LinkedIn and his resume.
And it's true that most recruiters and hiring managers will look up your social media and will look for you on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, so I always thought that recruiters never really did that. I just thought that that was like a myth that schools would tell me to just get me to not post like things on social media. But in actuality, they do. And they're usually not looking at it for a reason to recruit you per se. They're looking at it from a red flag perspective. And the reason that they're looking at that is, if you're looking at it from a recruiter's standpoint, they have hundreds, if not thousands, of people to sift through. So the instant that they find one red flag on you, they can cut you out of that list and be able to move on to the next. And from your perspective, that might seem very cutthroat, but when you're dealing with a massive amount of candidates, you need to find the low-hanging fruit in terms of being able to cut people off of that possible list of job applicants. So making sure that your social media is on point, but also doing a quick Google search of yourself too is super important. Typically, your LinkedIn profile is that first thing that pops up, especially if you have a unique name. So making sure that your LinkedIn profile is fully optimized is very important there.
And how important are the visuals? I know you talked about a good picture rather than just, what do you mean by a standard picture? Like a selfie, or do you mean getting a professional picture done, your header?
Yeah. So I think with photos is important, because as humans, I think we're becoming more and more visual, right? Just because of the way social media works, there's a reason that Instagram has become what Instagram is today. And you can leverage that in your LinkedIn profile, again, because With your resume, most people don't put pictures or even a banner image on their resume. So this can, again, be a way for you to differentiate yourself. Now, when it comes to what do you want in that picture, we're lucky enough that most people have smartphones nowadays. And if you do, you typically have a really solid camera on the back of it. And you can take great photos with an iPhone camera, an Android camera, whatever it may be, as long as you have good lighting. Now, when it comes to your profile picture, you want to make sure that it matches your industry. So what that may mean is, for me, you might look at me and say, why do you have a backwards hat on your LinkedIn profile picture? And the reason I do that is because my target audience is students, and that resonates with students because they're used to a more casual person and they can connect with me a little bit more. Now, if I was going into consulting or into finance, then I might want to wear a suit and tie. But if I'm going into, let's say, marketing, I have a little bit more room to play with in terms of creativity. Maybe I throw on a vest. Maybe I throw on a bright colored shirt, something to show my personality. And then let's say you're moving into engineering, then maybe you can just put on like a standard collared shirt, or even just a regular plain shirt if you're going into software engineering. It all depends on your industry, and you'll have to do a little bit of research in terms of like what works and what doesn't work for your space, but making sure that you match that. Because let's say you're trying to get into, let's say you're trying to become a marketer, right? And for a startup, especially, most startup marketers, they don't wear suit and ties. But if you wear suit and tie in your LinkedIn profile, they might look at that profile picture and say, this person doesn't match the culture of our company. I don't think that they'll be a good fit, so we're not going to pursue them anymore. So that's why you want to make sure that you match the culture of the industry as well as the company that you want to get a job at.
So that's a first impression thing, because like resumes, and I mean, I've sifted through resumes when I did some work in HR. It's moments. It's not even minutes. It's moments when you scan the resume and go, nope, yes, nope, maybe.
Yeah, because there's just so many.
Same as LinkedIn.
Yeah, same exact thing as LinkedIn. And I would say that you have even a less of a time frame for LinkedIn, because typically that's the second thing that they're looking at. So it's like, okay, we've qualified you from your resume. Now let's take a look at your LinkedIn just to see if there's any red flags there. And as long as they're not, then you're in the good. Because when it comes to just recruiters landing on your page, they're probably not going to take that much time. And the last thing that you want to do on your LinkedIn profile, though, is making sure that you have the people also viewed section turned off. And what that is if you're on your if you look on your right hand side on your LinkedIn profile, typically people will have it turned on, and LinkedIn will populate that with people that are in your industry, basically. So if you're looking for a job, people will basically LinkedIn will populate that with your competition. And if someone has a better photo than you, or if they have a better headline than you, the recruiter or hiring manager might scroll down the right hand side and say, oh, James looks more interesting than Justin. Let me click on his profile. And then now they're just completely off of your page. So you can simply turn that off in your settings and privacy. So make sure you have that off.
That is a good point. I never thought of that before.
Yeah.
It's interesting because one of the things I think about LinkedIn is it's also a good way to find jobs that might be hiring, because it will often tell you how well you match.
Yeah, you can use the match feature, which is great. You can also set up alerts, which I think is amazing as well. So if, let's say you are looking for a marketing position in a specific area, you can set up an alert so that anytime someone puts up a position, you can get a LinkedIn notification that someone or a company just put up that position. And I think the last really unique thing about LinkedIn in terms of like the job search of being able to find the specific positions is that a lot of times you'll be able to see who the hiring manager is on some of those listings. And if that is the case, you definitely want to try to reach out to them, send them a personalized invite, say, hey, John, I just saw that you're the recruiting manager for the marketing specialist position. I'd love to connect and learn more about your time at Google or whatever it is. And that's how you can start that conversation and build a little bit of rapport, and then maybe even get a referral, because there's nothing better than building up that rapport with someone and then going into a interview and then seeing that other person is on the other side of the table. That's like a guaranteed win.
Another question I have about LinkedIn. Now, you said you'll have your resume stuff on there anyway, but have the about different so that you're not
Mhm.
regurgitating everything. What about posts and articles and things like that?
Yeah, so this is where LinkedIn really differentiates itself from a resume, basically, is because with your resume, you basically are going out and telling people to say, "Hey, look at my resume." Whereas with your LinkedIn profile, it's a landing page, but there is that resume aspect to it, and you can bring people to your LinkedIn page. So for instance, for me, I create a lot of content, and I'm not saying that you need to create as much content as me. I just do that because that's part of my job and that's how I get views on my podcast and my media company. But when I typically ask individuals, whether it's at a conference or a school that I'm talking at, whatever it may be, I say, how many profile views are you getting on average throughout 90 days? Because that's the time frame that LinkedIn gives you. And typically I'll get answers between 10, 50, and if they're really good, they get 100. And when I tell them that I get anywhere between 4,000 to 6,000 profile views, they're like, how? Like, how do you do that? And the only way to do that is by making sure that you're creating content. And that's why I think it's super unique and sort of a content strategy that you can think about is you want to create content that's specific to that job that you want. So for instance, let's take finance. If you want to get a job on Wall Street trading or something like that, what you're going to want to do is connect with every single person that you can at Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, whatever it may be, so that they will see the content when you put it out. The next thing that you want to do is whenever the company that you're following releases earnings, you want to create an article that showcases how to go through a company's earnings, create an Excel sheet, come up with a financial analysis, and then put your prediction of whether you think that stock is going to go up or down. And then you can take that article and send it to every recruiting hiring manager or individual that's in that job that you connected at those big banks. You want to use the content to show that you can actually do the work. And I think you can probably attest to this as well, is most recruiters are always scared because they don't actually know if someone is lying on their resume or not. And the biggest thing that you can do is to prove that you actually have that knowledge, especially if you're a young student. So I always tell individuals, if you are looking to get a position and you're coming from a place of sort of unknown and no real recognition in your background, make sure to create some sort of content to show, and so that you're not just telling people that you can do something.
Yeah, because the resume is often, it's not the best tool,
Because you
and
can lie.
you
That's the
can.
thing.
And even an interview is not the best medium to discover whether or not the person's going to fit your organization, or whether or not this person is going to be able to perform past the hour that they're having the interview. It's sort of the beginning, but if they are able to dig in a little bit and see that the candidate has actually done a ton of work and put effort into this, well, then that person's going to shine and stand out far more than the person who sent out a broadcast resume to every every company in the city, and has not tailored anything and has not spent any time actually learning about the company. So I think that's very good advice, to actually do something specific to that industry.
100%. And I think it was super interesting for me because we have this one section on our podcast, the Declassified College podcast, where every season we have one episode that we dedicate the whole episode to getting advice from extremely successful individuals. So these are entrepreneurs, billionaires, executives at top companies, etc. And the overarching theme of the advice, no matter who gives it, has been that you need to build what you want to be doing. Because at the end of the day, if you have a piece of work that shows that you can do what you say you can do, that will matter way more than any keyword on your resume or any transition word on your resume or anything like that, because people can lie. And even if you don't personally lie, someone who has applied to that job probably did. And from the recruiter standpoint, they're going to treat everything with a grain of salt. And it's a shame that that's the case. but it is, and that's the game that you have to play. So that's why I always recommend individuals, no matter what industry that you're in, try to build up a portfolio in some way, shape, or form, whether it's work that you've done in your job or on a side project on the side. It's going to be really important during the hiring process.
So is there anything particular that works better than something else on the about page? Because that sounds like it's one of the more important, the about page, and then your articles that you're publishing or your projects that you're working on. Is there something you should not say in the about page?
I think it's more about what you should say, and what you should say sometimes is things that people will say that you shouldn't say. And
Okay.
what I mean by that is, in marketing, because I do a lot of marketing, the common saying is, if you are trying to market to everyone, you end up marketing to no one. And I think a lot of job seekers end up in that pool, because I understand, like, you're desperate, you're trying to find a job, especially during times like this, like you need to find a job quickly. So you feel that if you cast a wide net, you'll catch as many fish as possible. But in the job search world, you actually want to be as narrow as possible in terms of mentioning the job that you specifically want, knowing the specific skills that are involved in that job, and then also throwing in a few hobbies or things that you do on the side as a piece of connection. Like, I used to always put in my LinkedIn summary that I'm the son of two immigrant Vietnamese refugees. And the reason that I put that in there is so that any immigrant that's coming into the United States, they can relate to that a little bit, and I can connect with them. But also individuals who have parents that are Vietnamese refugees. I've gotten several students that reached out to me and said, hey, my parents are from a similar background. I grew up in a similar way as you. I would love to learn more about what you're building. And at surface value, it doesn't make sense, because you think, oh, this world has 8 billion people, like 7 billion people whose parents are actually Vietnamese refugees. But in actuality, because there's 8 billion people in the world, there's at least a few hundred, if not hundreds of thousands of people that fit that category that you're looking to hit. I mean, that's exactly why cat videos have done so well on the internet. Like, who would have thought that cat videos did well? But because of how many people are in the world, we realize that people love to see cats just messing around.
So you're talking about niche, aiming at your niche.
Yes, you want to define who you are, because if you don't, then you literally just look like everyone else that is in your current position. It's similar to how I think of college students, especially that's my main demographic. A lot of college students think that their degree is their differentiating point. And at a surface value, technically, yes, because if you're comparing yourself to a high school student, then yes, your degree is a differentiating point. But if you think about how many other students are graduating during spring 2021 with a degree, you're not just talking about hundreds, you're not talking about thousands, you're talking about tens of millions of students probably. So you're now in a sea of 10 million. How can you become a sea of 10,000? And then how can you become 1,000 and then down to 100? And the way you do that is by niching down and showcasing what you're actually, like, what's personable about you.
Right. That's good. So it sounds like it's a lot of work, but how often do you recommend people update, revise, take a look at, assess their LinkedIn profile?
I think if you're looking for a job, you should definitely update your profile as soon as possible. If you're not looking for a job, I would say update it every time that you either have a major accomplishment or like if you switch positions. But just staying on the job searching role, because I think that's a large portion of both of our audiences, and that's the most important thing that a lot of people are caring about. I would say typically you're going to want to spend 30 minutes to 2 hours a day on the platform. And you might say, oh my God, Justin, like, how do I have that time? I'm not a college student anymore, right? But then I would say back is, if you are looking for a job, then what else are you doing with your time? And I would say LinkedIn's time on that platform is worth more than any other platform, unless you're trying to get into tech. Then there's an argument to be made that Twitter is a good networking platform. But in any other industry, LinkedIn is king when it comes to trying to break into a place. There's no other platform where you have instant access to executives, founders, hiring managers, recruiters that are actively using that platform every single day. And there's not another place that you can create educational and professional focused content that's going to get the viewage that you get. For instance, for me, I create content around college education. I put that stuff on Instagram because I can't compete with the Instagram models and the entrepreneurs telling kids to drop out and they're going to become millionaires. My stuff will get 25,000 views a month on Instagram. But because I create it on LinkedIn and it's focused towards a professional environment and students go there to learn and employers go there to learn about students thinking, my content gets over 250,000 views every single month. So that's why LinkedIn is super important for this specific type of content, because on Instagram, it's never going to work out for you. But on LinkedIn, you have a chance.
So one of the things that bugs me about LinkedIn and is that I get people wanting to connect all the time. I have lots and lots of connections. And I have people wanting to connect all the time. And the second I connect, they want to sell me something. And it makes me mad because, they see coach and suddenly they want to teach me how to coach and, or whatever. And and I'm probably missing some legit connections and some good conversations with people because I get so fed up with, here's my program that will, do this for you and do that for you. Well, oh my goodness, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people doing the same thing that are pitching. And like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely annoying. It happens on LinkedIn. What I would say is I only connect back with people who send me a personalized invite. And that's how I've kind of been able to filter those spam requests, so to say. Have I probably missed out on a few interesting conversations? Probably. But I do also try to look at people's titles to see if it's something that resonates with me or something that I think could become a business deal or something in the future. So that I would say that's sort of the first filter that you want to do. If it's a personalized invite, definitely check it out and give it some attention. And then secondly, I personally only connect with people who send those personalized invite or if they have a really interesting title. The next thing is, which I'm starting to actually implement very soon, is adding an emoji to your first name is important. And the reason that you want to do that is because you can then instantly know if someone is just using an automated service, because they'll send, like, let's say I had a cookie in front of my name, like an emoji of a cookie. If I didn't have the cookie, you would get messages saying, "Hey, Justin, buy my service, blah, 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 blah." But since I have, and I can't really tell if they actually crafted that message or if they automated it. But if I put a cookie in front of my name, then it says, "Hey, cookie emoji, Justin." And I know immediately that they've just automated that, because no one in their right mind would put an emoji in front of my name when they're reaching out to me. So that's another way that you can filter it out. But again, that has to be sort of a part of your brand. And if it's not, then I totally understand that you can't do that. But that's just some of the ways that I've found to be able to filter those annoying spam requests.
That's very clever. Good on you. Yeah, because and it's often, oh, let's hop on Zoom or Skype and have a chat. It's like, I don't have time. I don't have time to do that. Although it might turn out to be a really valuable thing, but I'm not looking for a job right now. I am looking for clients, but these aren't clients. These are people that, are doing the same job that I'm doing or who seem to want to offer me their course or whatever they're pitching. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's super funny. Like I get hit up a lot more for our college is having a new graduate studies program. And I'm like, well, if you paid attention to any of the content that I put out, you'd realize that I would never pay for a graduate degree. So I don't know who's doing your marketing, but it's not working. But that's just the nature of the platform, unfortunately.
Yeah, I get people who want to offer me employees. I don't need employees, but thank you. Great. So tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, so our show is I like to think of it as one of a kind in the career space. And the reason that I say that is if you look at a lot of the career shows, they're long form, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes long episodes. And there's nothing wrong with that format. But specifically for the demographic that we were looking to hit of college students, we figured out that that wasn't something that they wanted to necessarily listen to. We had a show previously that was that 30 to 60 minute long show. And what we saw was our retention rate was only like 30% that would finish it. So we took that information back, went back to the drawing board, and we created the Declassified College podcast, which is short form, 5 to 15 minutes for most of our episodes. And in pretty much every episode, you'll be hearing from 3 to 5 different perspectives. And the reason that we did that is because our generation, we grew up with YouTube and we're used to consuming content on YouTube. And the content that we grew up with was vlogs. And in each vlog, there's multiple characters. So we were trying to add that character perspective and experience to our podcast. So that's why you'll hear from different students, different professionals, different career coaches, recruiters, etc., that come onto the show, give their 2 cents in a 1 to 2 minute snippet, and then I add some commentary over it to piece it all together. So I think it's a really unique show, and the feedback has been insane so far. Students are saying that they're binging it like it's Netflix, so which is absolutely insane because it's a career focused show. But I mean, I'm grateful. It's taken a lot of time to get here, though.
That's great. That's fantastic. So where can people find you if they're looking for you, Justin?
Yeah, so if you want to check out the podcast, you can check it out on any podcasting platform at Declassified College. It should be there. And then if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, it's just LinkedIn/IN/Justin GCGU. And then you can check out our website, getyourgrindup.com as well.
Perfect. And one last piece of advice for the Careers by Jenn listener.
The one last piece of advice. I would say it actually came off of our latest episode. It was super unique from this guy. His name is Chris Do, and he's the founder of The Future, which is a coaching platform that's aiming to help like 1 billion creatives and entrepreneurs provide for themselves. And what he said is a quote from Todd McFarlane, where Todd says that, I know this is kind of like Inception quotes right now, but Todd says that the reason that he has succeeded as becoming one of the most famous comic book artists of the world is because he was not only good at being good at art, he also spoke the language of business. And I think that's super important to understand, that you can be bilingual in other people's languages. I'm not talking just about Spanish, Vietnamese, English. I'm talking about understanding different industries, because the person on your team that works in finance speaks a completely different language than the person that works in marketing and the person that works in product. And the only way that you can get to those managerial roles is if you can understand the different languages that each of these departments speak, so that you can communicate properly to each one. So I would say that's my last piece of advice, is whether you're a student, someone who's established in their career, someone who feels stuck, maybe it's because you don't know how to speak another language other than the specific industry that you're in. Learning how to speak multiple ones will provide volumes when it comes to your career.
Excellent. Thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule.
Thank you so much for having me.
To be with us today. I really appreciate it. You've been listening to Careers by Jenn with Jenn Swanson. If you like what you heard, please share this. You know, if every single person listening today shared this episode with just one friend, our audience would be twice as big, just like that. And the more people we can help with our content, the better. So help out a friend and help grow our audience by sharing this show with someone you know who would benefit from the content. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that, and together we can make a difference. Until next time, take good care.